You're watching Seahawks Today, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. Ryan Grubb is out as the Seahawks offensive coordinator. Who could potentially take over as the next OC? We will go over the top 10 replacement options to be the next signal caller for the Seahawks offense. And I'll tell you this ahead of time. At the time we're recording this, there hasn't been any leaks just yet of who the front runners are to be this job, to take over this job. So at this point, it's pure speculation. We've kind of come up with our best educated guess of the 10 names to watch to be the next OC. Whoever takes over, they have quite the job in front of them. You'll look at this Seahawks offense in 2024. They ranked 18th in the league in points per game at 22.1 points per game, 14th in yards per game at 332.2, 8th in the league in passing yards per game at 236.5, 28th in the NFL in rushing yards per game at 95.7, and the third down conversion rate, not so good, 21st in the NFL at 37.62%. That was also the same ranking for fourth down conversion rate at 21st in the NFL as well. Stay up to date with this coaching search. We're going to give you videos here on the channel every time we get a new update, whether it's a candidate that gets interviewed or if they narrow down who could be that guy, whatever it may be. We're going to keep you informed and posted right here on Seahawks Today. Let's get 50 subs off today's video. And let's keep you up to form of what's going on with this OC coaching search. Subscribe now for free. Be a friend. Tell a friend, as Pat McAfee would say. Make sure all your buddies subscribe to Seahawks Today. Best part about it, 100% free. YouTube.com/SeahawksTV. Let's start with my favorite candidate on this list, Doug Peterson, who's now been relieved of his duties as the head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'll say this. The number one thing about Dougie P, he is a winner, bar none. I know that the end of his tenure in Jacksonville didn't go great. The end of his tenure in Philadelphia did not go great. But he had success in Kansas City as their OC. He had success in Philadelphia as their head coach. Heck, the start of his tenure in Jacksonville looked pretty promising, but things kind of went downhill. But Doug has proved it time and time again that he can get it done as a signal caller in this league. And he has a good track record of running the football effectively. You win a Super Bowl with Nick Foles under center, you have my full attention, folks. Doug Peterson, I think, would be an excellent hire. Somebody that has that pedigree that I think, if we talk about all the names here, this is the most qualified candidate. If this was a LinkedIn job, Doug Peterson's resume would be the first one that would come up of these potential candidates here. Next up, let's turn our attention to the Ohio State. Chip Kelly almost got this job last year. He interviewed. He was very interested in leaving UCLA as their head coach to be the Seahawks offensive coordinator. Ultimately, they went with Ryan Grubb, and he went to Ohio State to be their OC, replacing Bill O'Brien, who went on to be Boston College's head coach. And I'll say this. If Seattle wants to find somebody to run the football and be physical, Chip Kelly could be just the guy you're looking for. Whether it was at Oregon, whether it was with the Eagles or the Niners or UCLA, and now Ohio State. What is the bread and butter, the DNA of Chip Kelly offenses? I know the offenses over the years have evolved and changed, but one thing that has stayed solid over the years is Chip Kelly's commitment to running the football and winning at the line of scrimmage. I think Chip Kelly, with his head coaching experience, with being one of the best offensive minds that we've seen at both the collegiate level and the NFL level, would be a natural fit to this Seahawks offense. I would love to see Chip Kelly as a potential fit for Seattle, and you already have a relationship there with Mike Macdonald. To me, I think that's a very good thing for Seattle, potentially, if they decided to go with Chip Kelly here. So if you had to pick one to hire, would you rather go with Doug Peterson or would you rather go with Chip Kelly? Type Doug for Doug Peterson, type Chip for Chip Kelly. Weigh in our pinned comment today and let us know what you think. Next on our list, we turn our attention to Eric Bieniemy, the former offensive coordinator at UCLA. And Bieniemy, I've always said this about Eric Bieniemy. He holds his players accountable. He is the adult in the room. And you have a young head coach in Mike Macdonald who is still getting accustomed to being a head coach at this level. You look at Eric Bieniemy, he is not afraid to get in a guy's face, for better or for worse. At times, turned into some very heated arguments with Patrick Mahomes on the sidelines. But he doesn't care if it's Patrick Mahomes or the fourth-string wide receiver. Eric Bieniemy is a hard ass. And when I look at this Seahawks team, when I see the egos of guys like DK and others, I don't think it would be a bad idea to have a bit of a hard ass on this coaching staff to keep these guys like DK and others in check. Bieniemy, two-time Super Bowl champion there in Kansas City, went on to Washington last season, went to UCLA this year. I'll say this, UCLA's offense was not that great this year, but they had limited talent to work with. He claims that he was going to leave UCLA after this year, that he still had the buyout money that he was getting from the Washington Commanders anyway. He's been a running backs coach for a long time. If Seattle wants to run the football, this is a guy that has worked with some great running backs over the years as well. Bieniemy, I don't think would be a bad choice, and I think it would be a nice presence to have him there in the championship history. He's seen what it takes. 2 Super Bowls with the Kansas City Chiefs there with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Next up, let's stay within the division now. A name that is on the rise, Brian Griese, the quarterback's coach for the San Francisco 49ers. And it's a big name, right? Good football DNA. We know about his dad, Bob Griese, who had a fantastic career in the National Football League. Brian Griese went on to be a decent quarterback himself, spent many years as an analyst for ESPN covering college football and the NFL. He was on Monday Night Football a few years ago. 10 seasons in the NFL as a quarterback. He won a Super Bowl. He was a Pro Bowler as a quarterback in the NFL. And he is largely credited with the development of Brock Purdy. And how far along Brock Purdy has come has been largely in part due to what Brian Griese has done. And I'll say this. Brian Griese, I don't think was the most entertaining analyst on TV by any means. He was kind of dull. But nobody's ever questioned Brian Griese's football IQ. He is a very intelligent guy. And Brian Griese, I don't think, would be a bad fit potentially for what Seattle's looking for. Today's show is sponsored by our friends at Tushy. And you know why Tushy is one of my favorite sponsors? It makes my butt feel good. At what point do we decide stashing a wet, dirty plunger into a plastic bag is not okay? For me, that was this January. Since switching to Tushy Bidet, I've cut my toilet paper use by 80% and haven't clogged the toilet once. I was hearing A.J. Hawk say the other day that recently he had to wipe 100 times. If A.J. had Tushy, he would save so much money on toilet paper, and you could save a lot of money on toilet paper with Tushy. You don't have to be like A.J. Hawk, folks. Tushy is the modern bidet attachment that instantly transforms your bathroom habits and butt health for life. The Tushy bidet easily attaches to your existing toilet without the need for additional plumbing or electricity. People who have made the switch to Tushy save up to 80% less toilet paper. No more clogged toilets. Save your money and your ass at the same time. Every Hello Tushy bidet comes with a 30-day hassle-free return and a 12-month warranty. Instantly improve your health from the bottom up. For a limited time, our listeners get 10% off their first bidet order when you use code CHAT at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at HelloTushy.com with promo code CHAT. The link is in the comments and the description of today's video. Next on the list, Tanner Engstrand. He is the passing game coordinator for the Detroit Lions. He was a candidate last go-round to be Seattle's OC. Ultimately, he stuck around in Detroit. And if Ben Johnson gets a head coaching job, like a lot of people think that he will, Engstrand could be in line to be the replacement for Ben Johnson there in Detroit. So this might be a little far-fetched because of the position he's in Detroit to take over that offense on a very good team. But Engstrand's a rising star. This is going to be a name to watch that I think has all indications, all signs point to that he's just one coordinator position away from being a head coach in the National Football League. Teams already have their eyes on Engstrand to be in position to be that guy with the success we've seen. I mean, we're talking Jerrod Goff, for crying out loud. Jerrod Goff and how explosive that passing game has been. Yeah, this guy's helped make it happen. He's been their passing game coordinator the last 2 seasons. He spent 5 seasons as an assistant coach for the Lions. Oh, and even though he's not an OC right now, he does have play calling experience. He was the OC for the DC Defenders in the XFL just a couple of years ago. We've gone through 5 names. We got 5 more to get to in a moment, but I want to hear from you guys. Who should be the Seahawks' next OC? Weigh in the comment section. Let us know who you think that is. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. We just fired an OC from college. We don't want to do that again. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't name at least a couple of guys that are in the college ranks. And one name to watch, he is arguably the best coordinator in all of college football right now, Charlie Weiss Jr. from Ole Miss. And he's been around NFL people. You ever heard of his dad, Charlie Weiss? That fat slob? I can't stand his dad as a University of Kansas fan, but nonetheless, his dad, of course, longtime Patriots OC, worked with the Chiefs and a couple other teams, was the head coach at Notre Dame and Kansas. Charlie Weiss Jr. has made a name for himself. Doing a really good job at Ole Miss. He was at South Florida and Florida Atlantic as well for a couple of seasons, has been a very good play caller. And he's been so good, folks. Lane Kiffin, we mentioned being around NFL people. Lane Kiffin, of course, was in the NFL. We mentioned his dad and all that. Lane has got one of the biggest egos in all of football. And even Lane Kiffin trusts Charlie Weiss Jr. enough to turn over play calling duties to Charlie Weiss Jr. It's a pretty decent endorsement, I would say, for Charlie Weiss Jr. there. Gerro Johnson. I actually met Gerro Johnson once. He is now the quarterback's coach for the Houston Texans. And he has had a quick rise, and he has been largely credited with the development of C.J. Stroud there in Houston, who has been really good in his first 2 seasons in the NFL. He's been the Texans quarterback coach for the last 2 years, spent 5 seasons in the NFL as a QB, 5 seasons now as an NFL assistant coach. If you're looking for a young up-and-comer, Gerro Johnson could be the example you're looking for. And he's done it the hard way. This guy was not highly sought after as a quarterback coming out of college at Texas A&M. He earned his way. And you better believe he's going to make the guys that play under him earn their way as well. Frank Reich, former head coach of the Carolina Panthers, also the Indianapolis Colts. He's got a very good resume. And I know that the last few years that we've seen of Frank Reich, whether it was the end of his tenure in Indianapolis or the 1 year he had in Carolina, it wasn't good. But when it comes to his track record of what he's done as an OC, as a play caller, it's been pretty solid. We mentioned Doug Peterson earlier. He was the OC on Pederson's staff when the Eagles won the Super Bowl a few years ago. He was also the Chargers offensive coordinator for a couple of seasons as well. Frank Reich, not a bad option and a good veteran, older presence that could help out this coaching staff. Now, let's talk about our head coach for a moment, Mike Macdonald. Ryan Grubb was his guy. That's the guy he wanted to be OC. And it didn't work. Take 2 for Mike Macdonald here on the OC search. Do you trust Mike Mac to get it right this time? in all honesty, was this last hire that Mike Mac made a mulligan, or is he going to screw this up again? What do you guys think? Type Y for yes, N for no if you trust Mike Mac to get it right the second time round. Couple more for you. Davis Webb, the quarterback's coach for the Denver Broncos. I think he's got an incredibly bright future. This Denver Broncos team, nobody had any hope. Nobody had any expectations for the Denver Broncos entering 2024. A rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, who people like myself were a little skeptical about. And what did he do? He did a fantastic job with Bo Nix and his development. The 33rd team named him as the 9th best coach in the NFL that is 40 years old or younger. He is well on track to be an NFL head coach someday based on the trajectory he's on right now. And he hasn't even been coaching that long, just 2 seasons. Spent 6 years as a quarterback in the NFL, former Texas Tech QB. Davis Webb, he's waiting for his opportunity to be a play caller, to run his system and do his thing. Watch out for Davis Webb. Last on our list, Clint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints. He'll be looking for a job here as the Saints clean house. Plenty of experience. We obviously know about his dad, who won a Super Bowl as the Denver Broncos head coach. Clint following in his dad's footsteps. He's been around a bit. Saints OC, Vikings OC. He was on the Niners staff, also the Broncos staff as a passing game coordinator as well. Klint Kubiak, also a possibility, and an NFL name. If you're looking for a guy that's been around NFL circles, Klint Kubiak could be what you're looking for without touching guys that have messed around in college there. So there you have it. That is our full list of potential OC candidates for the Seattle Seahawks for continuing Seahawks coverage. And updates on this OC search, subscribe now to Seattle Seahawks Today. I'm Tyler Jones. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.